And I thank Phoenix Landing also for inviting me to be here today. Um, I want to share with you my opinion and ideas about how our parrots are currently raised for the companion um, parrot market, as it were. And I started thinking about this seriously, and that is the difference between parent-raised parrots and hand-raised parrots. I started thinking about that seriously a few years ago as the free flight hobby or activity, whatever you want to call it, has become more and more popular. And I free fly my cockatoo, so it caught my eye. And this is what is recommended. By the way, this is not a presentation on free flight. It's merely, I'm using the experience I have with my free flight birds, some of whom are parent raised and some of whom are hand raised. And I will be using them as examples of how my parent raised birds are trained. So with that said, I started thinking seriously about the difference, as I said, and it's currently recommended that birds destined for free flight be hand raised, making it easier to create a strong bond between the birds and their trainers. And it's thought that this human parrot bond is the foundation for achieving training success in the flying world. Well, not only is the recommendation popular with free flying birds, hand raising has been the standard procedure for all potential companion parrots. As we know, at least I hope we all know, that parrots are wild animals and they've not been domesticated. Not many people would choose to purchase a wild, untrained bird as a pet. So hand raising chicks was the answer for breeders who are selling young parrots. You know, hand raised fledglings are cuddly. We know that, cuddly and people friendly from the get-go. No training or parrot experience necessary. But what are the ethical and welfare concerns that come with hand raising parrots? And this is what we're going to discuss. And through my 40 years of experience living and training cockatoos for free flight, we will explore those concerns and how they relate not just to potential free flyers or flyers in general, but also companion parrots in our homes. And after that examination, we'll talk a little bit about training our parrot to fly indoors, not outdoors. So stay tuned for that later in the program. So let's get started. Okay. All right. So, you know, oh gosh, it's been about 2 years now. We had a huge ice storm in Oregon, my part of Oregon, and I went down to the pasture to assess the damage. This beautiful 150-year-old oak tree had fallen over, and I had a couple of the flyers with me. And there was another flyer up on top of the aviaries, maybe about a football field away. And there were a bunch of trees between us. I didn't see him and he didn't see me. And I thought, well, heck, I'll just call him. I'll give him the recall cue and see if he responds just for fun and he can join us. And I did. And I held out my hand and here comes Ritzy, this little guy, flying through the trees that you see here and landing on my hand. And it was a wonderful feeling which never gets old, by the way. Having my birds fly to my hand never, ever gets old. It always makes me very happy. It made me especially happy when Ritzy did it because he is a parent-raised cockatoo. And he acted like a hand-raised cockatoo, right? As far as his response to a cue. So as I mentioned, hand raising chicks is used to create a bond with the parrots. Well, I have one with Ritzy, even though he was raised by his parents. So many of my birds are hand raised and have been trained for free flight, and they're with me to this day. More importantly is we can have successful parent-raised parrots, whether free-flying or not, without the adverse concerns of hand-raising chicks. So, okay, full disclosure. Yep, I used to breed and hand-raised cockatoos for the companion market many years ago. And as I mentioned, some of those chicks I hand-raised for free flight, and I still have them today. But for the last 15 years or more, any cockatoos I have bred have been parent-reared and trained to free fly here at Cockatoo Downs. And they're all used in our training programs that we offer to adults and children who want to come and work with the cockatoos to learn how to be with parrots and do a little bit of training with them. And one of these birds is parent raised, the one down in the lower left down there. So they all participate. Oh, sorry. Okay, here we go. So as you can see, even wild parrots are trainable, or maybe we can say that people are trained by wild parrots, right? Because they seem to have no problem coming to folks and asking for treats. And even our parakeets or budgies who are destined to the pet parrot market are parent raised, and they typically turn into lovely companions in our homes, as do cockatiels. So my point is that parrots need not be hand raised to be successful members of our family. Hand raising parrots comes with ethical and welfare and behavioral concerns. So let's look at just a few of these concerns. And this is little Topper. I believe he's been with me for about 20 years now. I believe he was hand raised, although I'm not too sure, but he's one of my free flyers. So when considering welfare for our birds, I'll first refer to a quote from the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and it says an animal typically experiences good welfare when healthy, comfortable, well-nourished, safe, and these are the important words for me, able to develop and express species-typical relationships, behavior, and cognitive ability, close quote. So in my opinion, the way to achieve and fully optimize these requirements in captivity is to allow parrot parents to raise their chicks. Parrot rearing gives the chick the life skills through the species typical relationship she has with her parents and gives her her birthright to identify as a parrot. Hand-raised parrots do not fully optimize or learn the skills to become a wholly functional parrot, both mentally and physically. Behavior, where we all recognize this, right? We just love those cuddly cockatoos and macaws when they're babies. And unfortunately, hand-raising a parrot can result in abnormal or dysfunctional behavior in our companions. Hand-raised parrots become easily bonded to their caretaker. And that may be satisfying for the person or for us, but harmful to the parrot in so many ways, such as becoming one-person birds, showing aggression to other people who are not the chosen one, aggression towards other parrots in the household, possible feather destructive behavior, and the list goes on. And I'm here to tell you that I have experienced all of those abnormal behaviors and more with my hand-raised cockatoos who fly outdoors. And they still are so bonded to me that even being outside where they can be with nature, I am still the one in their life, and they fight over me. They won't want to leave me it's starting this time of the year, by the way. In December, the cockatoos start going a bit crazy, and I can see it now. There's angst between husbands and wives. I want her to be my wife. I want her to be my husband, that type of relationship. And my parent raised birds, meh, I don't care, lady, what you do, as long as you give me a treat. You're not a bird. I don't need to hang around you. If you call me and ask for it and give me a treat, I'm all over that. So it's a very distinct difference in my birds that I see. An important ethical consideration in raising a parrot in captivity is to honor his birthright. His birthright to grow up and identify as a parrot. And I just love this photo right here. This is Whistles, one of my Moluccans, who's a free flyer. And she is just exuding, you know, being a wild parrot, if you want to call it that. And this is accomplished by having his parents raise him to fledge. Parrots used for breeding should also be given the opportunity to fill their birthright as parents and be permitted to raise their chicks. And I think this is something that is so overlooked in the breeding community as far as the welfare and ethics of our breeding birds. You know, when I pulled chicks to hand raise, I was unaware of the physical and mental stress I was causing the parents. Well, okay, yeah, I could see that they were distressed, but I thought, hey, they'd soon get over it, while, you know, not giving any consideration to the impact I was imposing on them, both mentally and physically. So allowing parrot parents in captivity to raise their chicks allows them to fulfill their natural behaviors of parenting and increases their range of enriching behaviors to the betterment of their welfare. You know, parents spend many hours a day brooding the chicks, keeping them warm and secure, obviously, preening them. And I love this part, the preening part. The little bird on the right, who you will meet very soon, she was parent raised and she has no feathers, but the parents are in there. And I don't have this on film, but I've seen this from other nest box videos of parrots taking care of their little ones, and they will preen a naked chick. And it gives the chick a sense of huge security and confidence, and also helps really bond the parent to the parrot baby. Chicks are pulled very young. Chicks who are pulled very young from the nest miss out on these crucial necessities their parents offer. And they miss out on the bonding affirmation of their own species. And I think that's really important for our companion birds. When I pulled older chicks from the nest, it was clear to me that they experienced stress and anxiety. Once again, I thought, hey, they'd get over it. And though I tried my darndest to replicate the nest environment and the care the parents offered, it was still a different and potentially stressful setting I offered to the chicks. All right, so let's move on to social learning. What parrot parents offer a chick, both physically and psychologically, is important to the fledgling's identity and success in life as a parrot. Simple as that. Parrot social behavior, manners, how to relate to other parrots, and understanding flock behavior are part of a fledgling's birthright and welfare, and help her identify as a parrot. Parrot social learning is important to her success in life as a flyer and as a companion in a home environment. And when I say flyer, I don't just mean free flyer. As a flyer also, if we have our parents who will fledge their chicks and teach them how to fly in an aviary, that goes a long way to helping us have successful flyers in our home. no matter how much we love and care about our parrots, and I know that we all do, we cannot replicate what they fully need growing up from chickhood to fledgling without the help of their parents. Natural behavior, and this is a lot of fun. This is, I love this. You'll see why it's fun in some video I have of this. So we may have dysfunctional behaviors that can erupt from hand raising, and yet we have natural behaviors that can blossom from parent rearing. Behaviors such as foraging, preening, flying, predator evasion for us free flyers, and even proper vocalizations that I think are really important, by the way. I think it's important that our birds learn to vocalize from their parents, from the species that they have been created in. And these are vital for our companion parrots. So parrots need to, baby parrots need to learn, practice, fail, and prevail during their fledgling period to become fully functional adults and flyers. And this is best done, of course, with their parents and conspecifics. You know, the parents, this is tough for me to say, parrots. I get those two words mixed up. The parent's behavior can cue the fledgling to explore novel stimuli. So the parents give the fledgling the confidence and safety that allows her the opportunity to engage in self-generated and goal-directed behaviors, which can be limited in hand-raised birds. So as I had mentioned before, but I want to emphasize, I am not talking about training free-flying birds. I'm only using what I have and how I raised my parent-raised birds to be free flyers. They can very easily transfer into being companions in my home if I wanted to. So these are the examples and methods I use. There's many other methods out there that can be discussed. But this is the way I do it. So enjoy. We're going to start with the little naked bare-eyed cockatoo that you saw on the slide in the nest box. And this is Star. Star is a bare-eyed cockatoo, and she was hatched May 2019. And the following clips will show the important role that her parents have played in her upbringing. And Star's parents, by the way, are also parent raised and trained to free fly, and their parents are parent raised and trained to free fly. So the Star is now third generation. We're going to look at her parents' role, the neighborhood or the neighbor bird's role, the environment, and the people in her life. So this is a short video of some clips of Star growing up and where she grew up. So let's get started there. And she grew up in a large outdoor aviary. Her nest box is in the far back. You can't see it. This is one of her parents sitting on a training perch. And Star has now come out of the nest box. She's probably been out about a week or so. And Dad is trying to say, come on, kid, you got to have some breakfast. But she's saying, you know what? I'd rather just sit here with you and look around and get used to being outdoors. See how comfortable she is. She's not afraid at all. Her dad's there to take care of her if need be. Nice fluffy body language. And here she is preening with her mom. And again, she is getting this bond as a cockatoo. This is what cockatoos do. I like to put up a lot of foraging in the aviaries, and she here is learning to navigate, not too successfully, but this is a learning experience outside, and Mom's teaching her to, this is what we eat, kid. Here's a millet for you.
Oh my God, that's
and
so
you can,
cool.
There we go.
Holy crap.
Sharing.
Whoops, I have the sound on, I'm sorry. And this is Star's very first shower. She's on the far side of the fence. and her parents are sitting there, and her neighbor birds, or the flock, if you will, have come in and decided to take a shower. And Star is feeling very confident with her neighbors and her specifics, and her parents there taking showers. So I think you're going to hear an alarm call. There goes an alarm call. Mom takes off, and baby Star goes, "What? What's going on?" And she is now learning what an alarm call means. Her little crest was sticking up. And here's baby Star trying to get dad out of the way so that she can manage some more foraging on some rose hips. So this is the life of Star in the aviary with the help of her parents. Now she sees her conspecific, her neighbor, down there foraging. She's going down. Well, heck, what's going on down here? So she goes down to explore without her parents, all on her own. And that's Ritzy again. And Ritzy's got some millet. And Star is going, yeah, well, maybe I'll try some too. Mom has just raised these blocks of wood up and to get the almonds out of them and drop them. Star immediately goes over and raises them herself. She's never seen that behavior before. I just happen to have the camera with me. She's never seen that before. So obviously she's learning by observation. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna move forward. Okay, so here we are. Star goes to school. Now we've focused on the environment. We focused on her parents. And now we're going to talk about people socialization. And this is how that begins. Okay, so parents are the foundation, as you've already seen. So here's Mom down on the training perch getting fed. Star is up there and she's having none of it. She's going, I don't think so. I don't know who you are. But she is watching the people, different people that the birds know or don't know. I come in and work with the birds, do a little bit of training, and Star is watching this whole time. She sees her parents go down to the training perch and eat. And here she is coming down all on her own as her parents sit on the training perches inside the aviary, comfortable as can be, because that's what you do. You learn from your folks where it's safe and comfortable. She's eating from my bowl. I want her to anyway. Mom is closest to the camera. Star is on the far bird there. Mom eats very willingly from the bowl, as does Star, watching her mom. Mom does the same, eats right from my hand. Star goes, I don't know about that. Maybe it's more fun to bite it.
Bite my finger.
And so I pull it away and then she takes it nicely. And so she's doing a little bit of training right there. And this is my friend.
More comfortable already, I think.
And
Oh my God, look at her. She's all kind of
I don't know how
floofy
to
and
get
her
the-
breast feathers by her feet.
So this is Anne, a friend of mine. and you
Squatty
can
Downy,
see
which is nice,
how
relaxed.
comfortable.
Wings are relaxed.
Okay, I'll shut up and let me talk.
No top hat.
So as you can see, she's very comfortable being with people she doesn't even know. So she's now out free flying with her folks, and we will discuss that further in more detail. And this is Star's first recall. Again, the training perches are outside. She's very comfortable with the training perches, even in a new location. I'm asking Mom, who's on the right, I'm asking her to jump to my hand so that Star will follow her. And in fact, Star actually was the first one who jumped to my hand. So a day or two later, after working with some recall, here is Star, first off the perch, right into my hand, and Mom follows suit. Poor Dad is not allowed to participate according to Mom, so he has to sit in the back. So the one session I was having, I was all done. I put the family down.
Thank
and
you.
turned the camera off. And Star goes, no, lady, we're not done yet. So yeah, is she socialized to people? I would say
You're
so.
so
But
funny.
even her parents come over and join in the fun. So Oops, wait a minute, sorry. Oh, okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the free flight training, and it was all done by the parents. It was not me. The only part I did was train the parents to come to a station in the aviary and lower the ramp, and they understood that they can go out and in that ramp. So the day that I thought would be a good day to release the birds for Star's first flight, I lowered the ramp, and the parents came out with Star, and I didn't force her to go. The parents didn't force her to go. So they just sat there and watched and waited, and to see if Star was interested in going. They didn't take off without her, and she takes off first, just like she did everything else. And the parents went, okay, here we go. And it was really quite heartwarming to see the relationship that this family had, and the strength and the bonding that the parents had with this chick. You know, she didn't have the strength on the first day to outfly predators. It's the same with chicks in the wild, right? They just don't. And so the parents did not leave her side at all. If she landed in a tree, of course, they landed in the tree. If she did not take off from the tree, they did not take off from the tree. Whatever she did, they followed closely to protect her. And it was maybe 2 or 3, 4 days when she was full strength and was flying pretty much like a full strength free flying bird. And it's at that time that the parents backed away and gave her the keys to the car and said, you know, have fun, kid, just don't crash into anything. So it was really lovely to see. So Star today is almost 4 years old, coming May, and she's still an enthusiastic learner. She's playful, she's curious, she likes meeting new people, and she's a terrific flyer. And best of all, she's all cockatoo. So, I think I have one more. This is Star's long distance recall cue. She's one of my better recallers. Bingo. It's just a thrill. She's just a neat little bird. Okay, so we're going to talk a little. So we talked about the parent raised birds, and we can come back to that with questions. I'd love to hear your questions or concerns about what I had to say about parent raising our companions. Now we're going to move into a very broad overview of training our own companion parrot in the home to fly. And this cartoon is obviously not a parrot, but this is what flying birds do. They flap, 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 flap. And it comes very natural to birds who have fledged from the nest. And it's very difficult for most species to learn to fly if they have not fledged out of the nest. And when I say fledged, that means when they have learned to fly on their own in a large environment, that they can develop those flight muscles and the strength to fly and the coordination to turn and land and all of that is necessary for our birds to be successful flyers. So smaller bodied or lighter bodied species like small cockatoos, cockatiels obviously, and budgies, if they have been clipped or not fledged, they actually can learn to fly. They won't be expert flyers, but they can learn to fly. Heavier bodied birds that have been clipped or not fledged, like Amazons, maybe the larger Amazons, African grays, macaws, of course, it will be more of a struggle. That is not to say that you shouldn't at least try, because even the process of training, as long as it's not frustrating for both of you, and which we'll discuss, is just developing a relationship with your bird. And so let's move on and talk about that. So flight training basics. Yeah, I shouldn't even have put the flight up there. It's just training basics is what we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about the training environment. We're going to talk about target training, station, and recall, and how it all works into our free flying birds, or our flying birds. And I don't know if you saw, but that was Poofy. I have a little budgie in the house who's he and Blue are flying all over the place. He may make an appearance to introduce himself here. So, oh, and there's Poof, of course. Poofy's on the right. And we want our training environment to be a place that is calm, that is safe. We don't want little kids running in and out. We don't want a dog sitting there barking for our attention. We don't want other birds flying or getting in the way and you know, distracting us. We want to focus on our bird. And that's very important for successful training, as well as, again, developing that relationship with our bird. Poofy, as you see, has a training station on my kitchen island, and he needs this huge perch, obviously, because he's such an enormous little critter. Just kidding. That's actually a perch for another cockatoo, but he's fine on it. And if your bird does not come out of his cage yet, you can certainly train him in the cage. So, all right. So targeting will be our first behavior that we train. And I bet you a whole bunch of you guys know how to target already with your bird. I put a slide in there, How to Train Your Parrot by Barbara Heidenreich. So I would encourage you to go to her website and to learn more about training, not just flight training, but training in general. So targeting is merely what it looks like, just touching a chopstick or whatever you want to use as a target. And this is typically pretty easy for a parrot to learn. Some parrots are afraid of new objects being shown in their face, so you kind of have to back off a little bit and take your time. Yet, when you are successful, it's an easy behavior, and you feel confident, and your bird feels confident, and you're going, wow, look what we learned today. So that's a good place to start. This is a film. Of some targeting of folks who were at one of my retreats, and they are targeting some birds for the first time.
I clicked something I didn't want to click.
So Anne, can you help me? Is there a way that I can turn the sound off? Do you know?
You mean so that we can hear you?
I hear you and not the video. I don't know how to do that.
I don't know. I think it might be easier if you just let it play and then talk after instead
Thank
of
you.
during. Okay.
That'll work. Thank you.
Okay.
For that. Okay. So before I hit play, these two young women are learning to target. The birds are expert targeters. So they're getting used to how to hold the target and what they can do with the target. So let's take a look.
All right.
So Volley, you might want to tighten up your criteria
Right,
and have her touch the tip.
right.
Oh, that was
Trying to do
right.
approach with mouth closed.
Okay.
Aw, look at your fancy pants. Right?
So you're not having her touch it. Is that your criteria?
Yes, well, I'm trying to see if I can get her to approach it, but clicking her when her mouth is still closed.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I can see if I can,
Here.
so she's probably not actually touching it.
Okay.
Do you have to bring it for some
Stretch.
flower seed thing?
Oh, I sure did.
Okay, so Bully had her criteria, and that was to click little Asta over there with her mouth closed, her beak closed, because she didn't want Asta to grab onto the target. And The other person is working with Rebbe and turning him around at using it as a target to turn around, follow the target and turn around. So you can use that target for multiple ideas, moving them back and forth from perches to perch and all of that stuff. So it's a very handy tool to use. And this is Volley working with Goffin's Cockatoo Topper, who was afraid of going into this black crate that you see. And this is her second day or second session. I think it's the second session that she was working with him. Again, using the target to move the bird into the crate. And why it works is that he understands that the target is a good thing. So he's going to follow it as best he can and get a treat when he does. And she slowly moves him to the crate. So watch this. I love this.
Warmed up again a couple times.
Yep.
She's putting a cue to it now. So instead of using the target,
Yeah.
she's using the hand, her finger. So that
Perfect.
perfect.
Cool.
Exactly. I really like that. So again, using the target to move the bird around wherever you want the bird to go. This is a great exercise when you get your bird flying. It's a fun game and it's moving the bird, the flying bird or the jumping bird. If you're only just jumping at the stage of jumping, that's fine too, from perch to perch. So this is Kathleen and Tyke, and just, randomly showing her the target, and she flies over there, getting a lot of exercise. This is good for birds who don't have a lot of flight room in the house, and you can, set up perches around the house and have them fly around and around you go until you both get a little tired of the game. So stationing. Oh boy, stationing I find is really important, especially if you have multiple birds and if you have a flying bird or your soon to be flying bird. This is the family whom you met, the two parents, and Star. Star is looking right at the camera, or actually at my hand. You have something for me, lady? So stationing means to just what it says. You station on a perch, or you station on an orbit, or you station on the rope, or you station on a plaything, and hopefully you stay there until asked to come off. And it's not always like that, of course, but at least you can train it and encourage this. And if you have a bird, well, okay, so let's look a little bit at this. And this is going to be Poofy stationing on his perch. And we do this by the bird is sitting on the perch or wherever you choose to have a station, and you just feed and you feed and you feed. And boy, isn't this fun? This is the fun place to be. And you target him maybe, and you feed some more. And the bird learns, hey, you know what? When I'm sitting on this perch, I get lots of goodies. And then you eventually start asking for duration, meaning you don't feed every second. You feed and maybe wait 2 seconds. And then you feed and maybe wait 3 seconds, and extend the duration or the time between feeding, and the bird is learning to sit still until otherwise asked. So this is little Poofy learning that skill. He has already learned it, but we're rehashing it because we hadn't worked with it for a while. So he's sitting nicely and I'm only stepping a little bit back. I've stepped 6 inches further back and he's still staying. And then I asked for a recall. He knows that. And then he goes back to his perch. Now I want him to station again until the recall cue.
Sorry.
Which he didn't do. So we start again. Yep. So I don't go any further back than where he is successful. And when he is fluent at that, then I can start moving back further. He's really good right there because he's looking outside. He's looking at something, which is great. So I just gave him lots of treats for doing that. And then we can move on to our recall. Again, folks, this is just an overview. There are a lot of details that are included, in training, but I just thought you'd like to see a perspective of how it can go. And here's Alex with little Star. Star has developed a habit or has been reinforced, I guess you can say. When we walk away from her training perch and we're done, she will fly after us and cling onto our backs, looking for more, like she did in the earlier. Instead of coming to the front, she goes to our back, and which is kind of not very nice. And so Alex is going to work with her on walking away from her and having her station. And this is an ongoing behavior that needs to be worked on because guilty is charged. I haven't worked on it, so she's back to doing it again. That's okay. So here she goes. So he backs away. Of course, he's looking right at her, so she's not going to fly to him, but she is learning to sit on the perch, and she's watching. He gets in recall position, by the way. That's the recall almost cue, and she still sits still, which is great. She's really paying attention, and away she goes. So stationing, I think, is really important, especially in our homes, and we'll discuss that in a minute. So step up to recall. Yes, indeed. Chickens can learn to recall. I love this. This is again at one of the retreats, and the chicken has learned to step up on a person's hand and jump or fly to the other person. And then eventually that was transferred to a complete recall by holding up a hand. And they do it. Chickens are great students, by the way, and they're fast and they're smart. Don't let anybody tell you chickens aren't smart, because they are. So this is little Ellie. Ellie came to me. I adopted Ellie about 4 years ago from a sanctuary here in Oregon. And she came to live with me in the house. And at the time she was 8 years old, and she'd been through 4 different homes. And she was flighted in a couple and not flighted in others, meaning she was clipped. And she would start developing aggressive behavior towards members of the family. So I decided to adopt her, and she came to live in the house. And I don't have cockatoos in the house. She's the only one that I had in the house. And during the honeymoon period, it was wonderful. She would fly around and land on the perch and fly to me. And, the honeymoon period. So 2 weeks later, things started to change. And instead of flying to me, she would swoop at me and dive bomb me. So I thought, okay, we're going to start from square one. And this is what you would do or what you can do with a bird who doesn't know how to fly yet. Ellie did, But I still wanted to start from square one as if she didn't know how to fly. I started with target training her and then stepping up politely and jumping to a perch and then eventually flying to my hand. So these are the steps. This is all condensed, by the way. This was not in all one session. So she's sitting on a crate that she's very comfortable with. She just merely walks to the perch, which she's very comfortable with. I use my hand as a target, and she walks over to the crate to take a treat. I move the perch just a little tiny bit. She has to stretch. And we're going to do it again. That is the key right there. And I'm going to back this up a little bit. You want to be watching those wings when you're doing this. That's going to tell you when your bird is ready that he understands what wings are for. Okay, so I think it's this one here. You're going to see her wings just a little bit move. See them come out. Oh, that was the big one. Well, anyway, prior to that, they just moved a little bit. You're going to want to look for that flap. And the bird's saying, hey, I know what these wings are for. So now she can jump and use her wings to balance her and give her confidence to get to the perch. Now you're on your way to a flying bird. Remember, this is all condensed. This may take your bird a week. It may take your bird a month. It may take your bird 6 months. It doesn't matter. You're still training and having fun. So now I put my hand on the perch. So she knows the perch is there. And there's my hand. And all she does is just walk right to my hand to get a treat. Yeah, my hand is nice and steady. It doesn't bounce. So she's comfortable with that. Getting used to it and getting confidence to jump to my hand. I think the next time I put my hand on top, not on top, but above the perch. So it's going to have a bounce to it. That doesn't bother her either. It may bother your bird at that point, in which point you go back to putting it on the perch again. So eventually it turns into a recall, we hope. Yeah. And so when she did start flying around the house again, I limited her time to fly. I, maybe let her out for 5 minutes or so, and we would do short recall. Here's Poofy. And we would do short recalls before she got worked up and, got her hackles raised. And that kept her calm so that in the future, her length of being out, time of being out grew and grew before she got wired up again. All right. So now you have a flying bird. Now what? This is what happens when you have free flying birds. They destroy the outside of your house. But you're going to have a bird inside. And I love this cartoon. It says, his final internet search was insane monkey, how make calm down. Well, it very well could say his final internet search was flying parrot, how make calm down. And this is where we're going to use the tools that we have trained our birds with. And the top slide up there, the top photo, I found online, and lo and behold, it was from Phoenix Landing. And I just love this photo. You want to make your house parrot friendly. And because if you don't, believe me, he will find things to chew on that you don't want chewed on. You kind of want to parrot safe your house like you would a toddler. And so you want interesting places for him to explore. You want stations. You want a bird to go to his station where there's fun things happening, whether you have foraging toys, whether you have food, whether you walk by and your bird is on the play stand and you're going, good for you. Here's a big treat or a little treat or whatever that will encourage your guy or gal to sit where you would like him to sit. Of course, you have to offer those opportunities for your bird. So please be aware of that. When you live with a flying bird, it is a lot of work. It can be a lot of work, but it sure is fun. And boy, is it good for the bird's health. And Dr. Oros could talk more about that if she would like. And even if your parrot can't fly, we can arrange the environment so that he has to do a lot of climbing and jumping and keep, that body moving. So it's not just about flight. And don't feel bad if your bird can't fly. You can make opportunities for this bird, for your bird to have exercise otherwise, in other ways. So this is an example of the little budgie on my shoulder and his pal Blue. They have a big night cage there in my family room, and their little tree that they hang out in and do foraging on, and then they move to an outside aviary that's hooked up to the window. And that's the same thing with Ellie here. She has a larger outside cage or aviary, and she can go in and out at will to her indoor cage. And if you can't fly your house, right? If you can't fly your bird in your house, you may consider, if at all possible, making an outdoor aviary for your companion. Just the idea of being in the sun and fresh air and new experiences is so enriching for your parrot. If at all possible, you try to go that route as well. This is an example I took just the other day of my flyers going to their stations. Now, I had just called them in. I was going to put them away. And when I called them, they all came flying to their stations where I train them a lot there. And so, oops, it's not working very well, is it? And, but they all flew over there.
Good job.
Got treats.
Good job.
Okay. Let's see. So what can we do with our flying birds besides just letting them fly around the house? Well, you can teach them things. You can teach them to fly through a hoop. You can teach them, you can play hide and seek with them. You can hide around a corner and call their name and have them try to find you. You can have them fly from perch to perch or station to station, like I had already mentioned. I hope this works. This is an online. Uh-oh, you're not going to work. Oh, it's going to work. Yay. Here's Poofy.
Don't get full. We need the hoop.
Okay. Can you still hear me? I hope so, because I just did it on the YouTube thing.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So here we are with Poofy, and there was a failure in the hoop holder there. I held it too high. He has not seen this little hoop before, so we're going to ask him to just step on Kathleen's hand and pull him through the hoop. Just make sure he's not afraid of it. Poofy is pretty fearless, by the way. Most birds may not appreciate this, so you really have to take your time. But it's a fun behavior once it gets trained. So let's move it forward a little bit. See if we can get some flying action. Not quite yet. Let's move forward. Okay. Come on, Poofy, you can do it. There's the wing action again. That's what you're looking for. Yep. And budgies are fast too. They're like chickens. They're very fast. So you really have to focus on these little guys. And they're great flyers. They're a lot of fun. Okay, there you go. So we're making it through. One more. Let's see what happens. So you get the idea. Okay. Whoopsie. I don't want that. Okay. How do we move forward, please? There we go. So this is a hoop exercise game that my friend in Australia taught her Indian ringneck, who are also great flyers, by the way. And this is a heck of a lot of fun. I love watching this. I hope. There we go.
Good boy. Mila. Hoop. Hoop. Good boy.
I
Hoop.
just, it's so neat.
Good boy. Hoop. Good boy. Ready? Hoop. Mila. Hoop. Come on, boy. Hoop. Good boy.
Very cool. So that obviously gives your bird lots of exercise, plus it's lots of fun. So consider that. So I thought it'd be fun for you just to take a look at my flyers outside, and the four of the 7 flyers that are in these video clips are parent raised birds. So I hope you enjoy this. So what do I have in my parent raised cockatoo? I have a cockatoo who has achieved her birthright to be a cockatoo. And I celebrate a companion cockatoo who is not dependent on people to fulfill her life. I have a cockatoo who has basic manners and behaviors that make living with people conducive and successful. I have a confident, bold, free-flying bird with well-developed natural behaviors at the ready to assist her in her free-flying experiences, as well as living successfully with her human companions. So let's reconsider how parrots are raised to be our companions. Let's look at them with compassion and allow them to the best life we can give them in captivity. And that starts with allowing the parents to raise our future parrot companions to fledge. Thank you. And I welcome again any questions, and I look forward to answering them.
Thanks, Chris. You do have some questions. and maybe we can kind of consolidate them into similar categories. And Dr. Orez is joining us too. How nice. First of all, starting with the parent raised, because that's kind of what the first part of your presentation was about. I was especially struck when you discussed vocalizations, because there's been a growing body of studies, even one out this week, about parents teaching mimicry and other things to their chicks and how important that is. I mean, it seems to be more and more valuable for them to speak their own language, right?
I agree. Yes. And of course we can parrot parents can have been bred in captivity and maybe don't know the native language of their species. So, it gets a little tricky there. They can teach them vocalizations that you will not hear in the wild. But
Almost dysfunctional in many cases.
yeah. So yeah, it is. I feel it's again something that's been overlooked as far as the importance of making allowing our parrots to be parrots. Yeah, I definitely hear a difference in my hand-raised barrides as opposed to my parent-raised. They have different calls. They have different. Yeah, my hand-raised birds are almost more static in their ability to get to vocalize differently. You know what I mean? They only have a set number of vocalizations, whereas my parent-raised ones have all sorts of different vocalizations. Seems to me.
Yeah.
That's just my experience. So this is just me.
It makes sense. Somebody wanted to know if you find that parent-raised birds are less likely to bite when things don't, quote, go their way. Are they?
Well, first of all, I'm working with flighted birds. So flighted birds, instead of biting, they fly away. So I don't know the answer to that. I would say that a parent-raised bird would be more sensitive to your movements, and you can see his body language change maybe more rapidly as to his likes and dislikes. I think in the long run, it's just us, no matter if it's a parent-raised bird or a hand-raised bird, to be particularly attuned to our parrot's body language in order to prevent the bites.
How many cockatoos do you have now? Is it 7?
No, I have 11.
11. And are there bonded pairs in that group?
Yes. Well, let's see. Yes. There's
And do they fight amongst each other? And
what do you mean? The parrots?
well, I mean, from what I've learned from being watching birds in the wild, apparently the only time they really fight is when it's over space, like for a nest or a mate. Otherwise, they're just, enjoying the outdoors. But if you're in a more confined space and you have bonded pairs, I'm wondering what the dynamic is.
Right. The dynamic is, yes, they do fight even when they're out flying. So they will fight over territory outside. When I say that, so for my hand-raised birds, where I am, then that's their territory. And if an intruder, whether it be a parent-raised bird or not, comes into that territory, they get chased away. So yeah, that happens. Now, amongst the parent-raised flyers, that happens as well. They certainly have a pecking order. So Star obviously is down on the totem pole because she's brand new. And she's learning where she is allowed to go and not go. I mean, it's not, it's not tooth and claw. There's no bloodshed, but yeah.
The reason I asked that question is kind of a prelude to what some other questions have been from people who have multiple birds in their household, and they want to encourage flight, but when do you say that's safe or not safe amongst a flock, right? I mean,
Yeah, and
environment of one, right?
yes, and it's just a matter of living with your birds and trying to decipher, even when they're non-flying, who gets along with who. And it may be just letting one bird out at a time, and that can be a problem because the bird may want to go land on somebody's cage, and then their toes get bit. And yeah, listen, having a companion parrot singularly is hard enough. Having more than one is hard, and that's why we have birds going from home to home or being given up. They're a wild animal, and I admire people who are successful living with them. My hat is off to you all. And frankly, the only birds I have in the house are the budgies, and they seem to, because they're so easy. And I can't imagine having 11 cockatoos in my house. So good on all you who can do it.
I'm sure in a little while we can talk to Dr. Orrs about the importance of flight and how important that is. But it seems like when people have multiple birds in their household, even if every now and then they need to clip their wings just to reset a little bit or prevent a pattern, I know we encourage, no clipping, but every now and then it can kind of push the restart button or prevent an accident. And they do grow back. That's the good news, right? So
Yeah,
tough call.
Yeah, I don't know my thoughts on that, to tell you the truth. Maybe clip enough just to limit flying and not actually, you can't go anywhere flight type clipping.
Right.
And does it really, it's always going to reset. Yeah. But for how long? It's going to happen again. So that's where I think having it, if at all possible, having an outdoor aviary just to split up the group a little bit helps.
It's a great idea. Another parent raised question: when do you start interacting with the chicks that are
Right.
raised?
Right. And what I do is what you saw in the video clip is, while the chick is still in the nest, I'm working with the parents, just keeping that relationship solid, and that they know that I'm a good thing. And here comes the lady with the treats. And so that they can remain calm. So when the baby comes out, has fledged or come out of the nest box, he will see that the parents are fine, are very calm with me in there, and not look upon me. They do not look upon me as a predator, and the chick will learn from that. So it's while the chick is in the nest box, other people, meaning working with the parents, other folks co-parent. So the parents are tame enough that you can go in and handle the chick, do that type of thing, or you can make it where you can block off the nest box hole, or admittance into the nest box, and somehow get into the back of the box and handle the chick, just for a little bit, or even you can feed them a little bit and then put them back as the chick is growing up. So there are other ways to do it as well.
That's great. There was a question about the free flying birds, and how do you supervise them, or what do you do to keep them safe, or nature takes its course sometimes, I guess.
It does happen, and free flying parrots do get taken. I've certainly lost some parrots from that, cockatoos from that. How I do it is that they, just like you see with Star, they grow up outside. They grow up out in an outdoor aviary, and they get a large aviary, so they get a lot of wing practice in there. They're outside, they're taking in the environment, they're looking at hawks that fly by, they understand what hawks do, by the reaction of the other birds. And they become essentially wild birds as far as their awareness of the outdoors. Even my hand-raised birds are very aware of what's going on. And that is because they live their entire lives outdoors. They do have access to an indoor cage, by the way, during the wintertime and summertime, but they're outdoors. And so when I fly them in a flock. Oh, that's so important. I do not fly single birds. You know, flocks are there for a reason. They're there to protect each other. And the more eyes that are out looking for the bad guy, the easier it is to escape the bad guy, because somebody's going to yell out, there's a bad guy, and then they all take off. So yeah. And the other thing is where I fly at home only. I do not take my birds anywhere else other than the territory that they know. I tried that once and I did not like it at all, nor did the birds, by the way. So they need to learn their environment. And folks who take their flyers, especially single flyers, out to parks or wherever, that makes me very nervous. And I don't think the bird's comfortable either. I mean, where am I? I don't know this territory. So yeah, I think it's stressful for the flyer as well.
What temperature do you let your birds out in?
Oh yeah, I've let them out in the snow just for photo ops. It's all ego, you know. But anyway,
I don't know. I think cockatoos like the snow. We let them out in the snow here too in the aviaries. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I let them out in the snow. I have one flyer, the little goffins that you saw on one of the slides, the one that was going into the crate and such. He's a free flyer, and he was a great free flyer. He learned quickly and he did recalls really well. And it snowed here one day, and I thought, well, I'm going to let Topper out along with everybody else. And Topper, it was like, what? Are we on another planet? I don't think he recognized any of the trees or anything. He says, what is all this? And he just went up into a tree and just sat there. So that was a little unnerving, but he finally did come down. So yeah, I don't do.
I noticed you had a red vented who was digging in the tree. Is that tree still there? And do they go to that?
The tree is still there. He and his mate at that time, and that's Asta. She's the one who has died, unfortunately, but they would go off in the springtime. And my parent raised birds do the same thing, by the way. They go and look for nest cavities. So yeah, he would do that. And he's not doing that anymore because Asta is not his companion. Now I have taken that role. I had it in the beginning. I was still his mate, but Asta was one in a pinch if I wasn't around, if you know what I mean. And so now that she's
back up.
Yeah. So now a backup, right? And now that he and I do not go look for nest cavities. Let's put it that way.
Your tree climbing skills are not in order.
Those days are over.
Somebody has the $1 million question about how do we convince breeders that hand raising is detrimental. I know Dr. Ora spends a lot of time preaching that. Yeah.
Maybe we can hear from Dr.
Yes,
Ora.
I did. So, just from a historical perspective, we, Chris, were wrong. I remember sitting down with Dr. Kevin Flammer, I don't know how many years ago it was. And as veterinarians, we thought hand rearing was the right way to go. They would be better pets. And then we realized we've made a horrible mistake. And we went to lunch in Las Vegas at the big veterinary conference. And I'll never forget, we decided together that we would work hard at trying to get that changed. But the problem is double clutching, right? And so, these guys want to pull eggs or pull chicks really young so they can double clutch, and that's how they make their money. I don't know, but you've shown us beautifully today why that's all crap. For lack of a better word, and we're dealing with these really incredibly knowledge, these birds have knowledge. They have generational knowledge that they need to share. They have behavioral knowledge. So it's a really difficult thing. You talked about dialect and their ability to communicate through, I'm going to call it speech. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know that the numbers of birds being raised are continuing to be less. That's good. I was just absolutely thrilled with you showing the budgies, because those guys are a forgotten group. I mean, Dr. Lefebvre and I have been talking about budgies for a long time, and the problem is people don't value them, so they don't get to the vet, so I don't know how. Anne, you might have some ideas, and Chris, you might, but I don't know what to do with the pet trade. I thought I would help it make it better. I'm at 38 years and counting, so almost 39, and I haven't done a damn thing with it.
Well, I was the same way. I mean, I started in the days when birds were coming from quarantine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And so I would, I was going to raise the birds so that they wouldn't be taken from the wild. That was before they put a kibosh on importing them. And I was going to do this good thing, right? And again, the only way that was at the time promoting success in the business, I suppose you want, or the product, is to hand raise them. And I think, we know better. I don't think we can blame ourselves. I think we're learning more and more about how animals are sentient, and they have, a right to be themselves, and to kind of get away from them as products and commercial, these huge industrial dairies and all of this stuff. So hopefully we're kind of going in the right direction. I don't know how. I suppose one way to, I don't know, make influence is to say parrots make lousy pets. I mean, that's what I say. And oh yeah, you can say that, Chris, because you already have cockatoos. Well, yeah, but if I had to do it all over again, I swear to God, I would do budgies instead. It's just, they seem to adapt really well to the home. They can fly around the home and get all the exercise they need, I think. And they aren't dramatic like other parrots, and cockatoos especially.
And live as long.
Yeah, and they don't live as long. Well,
Hang on. I've had budgies live to 15.
Yeah.
Oh, good to know. Good to know.
Better than your Amazons that in 90 plus, right though, Susan? Yeah. Do you all know if the laws passed in California have made any difference in the population and the breeding approaches there? I mean, I think they've passed laws over the years that are not as strict as Europe, but at least, there are more requirements for better breeding. I don't know.
I'm ignorant. I don't know. I know, what is it, Netherlands?
Yeah, very strict there.
I don't know how effective that is. I mean, who goes around and knocks on doors? I don't, how many birds do you have in the house, or where they parent raise? I don't know how that works.
The tone is set, though, I think, in a way that reaches the public. Maybe we have so many people opposed to any kind of law in this country that it's to the parrot's demise. I think, there's got to be some compromise for the welfare of birds. And
that is a whole nother
quagmire.
Yeah, and it would be interesting to discuss, should parrots even be pets? I know that ship has sailed, but it's something to think about. Maybe it will lead you into, well, then at least let their parents raise them, that type of thing. But,
right. We have some people who are actually responding that are overseas and saying in Switzerland they have to have at least 2 birds.
I love that.
Yeah, I think that's the case in Netherlands and some other places as well.
I wonder how that's enforced, though. That's, you have to.
I don't know. But again, it probably, eventually becomes part of the tone of the public perception of birds over time, She says the law has not really been checked. But, it's kind of like it's there to enforce if you needed it to be enforced. So. Yeah.
True. Yeah.
I don't know. Well, flight is certainly more and more important. I know Dr. Orris would say
Hey,
a lot
can
about that.
Can I offer an idea?
Sure.
Chris, I was just so enthralled with your short little spaces and trying to go through the mechanics for the owners of how to kind of set those up in their home. Maybe Chris could link with Phoenix Landing, and I mean, I don't want you to give all your knowledge away. We need her to have people, pay for a seminar series, but yeah, because you got to pay for the birds' food and stuff like that. So we should do something to get people to realize, yes, I can do this in my home. I can do this. I can get my bird flying, because what I see is what happens when they don't.
We've both done that. Chris has retreats. We have workshops.
know.
We've just all kind of been on hiatus for a while, but
Susan was here. How many years ago was that?
Oh, was that fun? Oh my
Gosh,
God,
yeah.
was that fun?
You were only here a very short time. You had to take off. Though.
It was so long. That was when my daughter, remember, she graduated from high school and I had to fly all the way back home on Saturday because she graduated on Sunday. That was a long time ago.
Well, we need to do that again. That's what I say.
Oh yeah. This time I'm not going to fly back in a 24-hour period though.
That's a great idea.
But
Dr. O, what is the, I'm sorry, speak, Anne. How many birds are you seeing with heart disease these days because of lack of exercise?
Well, I don't know if that's, I'm not seeing just the general beginning exam. I mean, I see some of that, but I would say most birds that I see have problems that are related to the fact that they've been sitting on a perch. So my view is that by the age of 20, unless it's a tiny bird like a parakeet or a cockatoo, but by the time they're 20, they're going to start showing signs. It might be subtle, or it might not be subtle. It could be bad. And so, Dr. Eccles has done some really nice stuff with his CT scans, and that's what we did with the book. I mean, that the amount of bone loss is dramatic. It doesn't matter if the bird is a parrot or a hawk. When it sits in captivity for 20 years, it's going to lose bone mass. Its heart's going to get bigger. It's not going to perfuse itself as well. There'll be changes in the kidneys. There'll be changes in the liver. And the whole thing, people say to me, well, my bird's been fine. And it's been 20 years and it doesn't need to go to the vet.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, well, you don't need to go to the doctor either, and just die whenever you want to die, buddy. You get a choice.
Well, and I also don't want to make it sound to the folks who say, well, my bird doesn't fly. He doesn't get enough exercise. And I'm really terrified that he's going to die of, liver fatty disease or something.
He will.
So, I also don't want to make it so dire that nothing's going to help if your bird doesn't fly, right? Can't we?
Well, if they exercise, the most important thing is flapping.
Yeah.
They say to me, well, my bird can move its feet around. Yeah, okay. But it's the flapping. 20 times the metabolic energy goes up with flapping. So So that's why they need that flappingness. They may not have to fly far. I mean, you showed how they don't have to fly far. I mean, you had them go from here to here, and they went back and forth multiple times, and you target trained them to do that. And it isn't like they need a lot of space. They need a lot of time doing
Yeah.
it,
Yeah, okay, well, that makes sense. Yeah,
you
I like.
know.
Mhm.
Not a lot of space. I mean, they just need some time flapping every day, multiple times a day, because that's what they'd be doing in the wild, right?
Right. And that also develops, keeps that relationship between you and your
Right.
learner strong, and try to look at this as a, not as a do or die exercise or behavior. It's more like, let's just have fun and do this. And if you only jump and flap your wings twice, in a foot, super, yay,
Yay.
we're not looking at going across the living room yet. Maybe someday, yes.
No, no, it
Let's-
might take months. It might take
Yeah.
months.
Exactly. So.
What's your opinion, Chris, on how old, if a bird can become too old to teach to fly? I know that different people have different opinions about that.
Yeah, I really don't know. I am limited because I've only flown my own birds. And as I said, cockatoos, the light bodied ones are real easy to fly. I have a sulfur crested Triton cockatoo, a big cockatoo, and she apparently was hand raised and not fledged. And I tried my darndest to get her to fly. And she was just not into it. She didn't like it. So I think that if a bird is showing, an older bird especially, we don't know what's going on. And, arthritis, I've got birds that have arthritis, for heaven's sakes, and they're flyers even, and they're 30 years old. And if a bird has been sitting around for 30 years, I think it might be a little cruel to if he isn't really motivated to try. So that has to be examined. Maybe he needs to be on some type of painkiller. I don't know, Susan, if
Yeah,
that's
yeah. Well, I try to use herbals if I can,
okay.
but
Yeah.
sometimes you can't. Sometimes you got to go with some kind like a non-steroidal like Advil or Tylenol. And you can't use that in a bird, but something like that. But if you can just get them to flap, and I agree with you, some of these birds, they don't even know what their wings are. Right? Have you seen a bird that looks at his wings like what the hell is that?
Well, yeah, and I think that
I've seen that happen. It's like, wow.
So when birds are clipped young and not given the opportunity to fledge and they fall, it's going to hurt. And then all of a sudden, I don't want to move. I don't want to jump. And he has his wings now all growing in. And sorry, it hurts when I jump. I remember that. I landed right on my face or on my chest, so there's all sorts of things going on that they need to overcome. And it's pretty darn difficult.
Yeah, because they're smart, but we keep forgetting how smart they are. And they remember. They're like, elephants in the room. Like I remember. And that's one of the things, Chris, that I see it more in cockatoos that have had their wings clipped and then they've fallen. And because of their kind of the way their tail, the bones of the tail come out from the sacrum, they really whack that more. And so there's minimally pain. Sometimes the pain is so intense that's why they're pulling out their tail feathers all the time, because as the tail feathers go in, it causes more weight. More weight causes more pain.
Wow.
So, yeah.
You see that in grays as well, I would imagine.
Yeah. Because grays are pretty heavy-bodied birds. I mean, I thought that grays were really like herons. They have really long, skinny toes, and they walk around in the mud a lot, right? And in their native environment, so they're like herons, but it's because they don't need those long toes. They don't sink into the mud, and But they're heavy bodied birds, just like Amazons. And
Yeah.
so they really bunk their tails as well. Amazons don't do it quite as much though. If you notice, most Amazons don't pull out their tail feathers. That's pretty rare.
Mhm.
Really rare to see that in an Amazon, but more commonly in cockatoos and grays.
I didn't
And then
know
they get that tail infection, which leads to the problem that Scott Eccles has documented. And
Yeah, where he's had to actually remove tails to get him to
we just
stop.
did one of those surgeries recently. She's still in recovery, but hopefully it's going to mitigate the mutilation that was being caused
so
by the pain.
yeah, and a lot of that is also perfusion, right? So that there's really poor perfusion, and because the heart's not doing as well as it should, and it's just it's an endless cycle. But just these little things that you're showing us today, wow, it's so exciting because those are little things that people could do at home, and their birds' lives, and they're bonding with the bird, they're targeting, and they're teaching them, and then they can walk and they can stretch so they can get to the owner, and they can get out of the cage and they can move around and reduce their arthritis issues. And oh, it's exciting. I think it's exciting.
It's so hard to figure out good exercise for birds in captivity. I mean, there just seems to be a limit to the options that meet the standards they need to meet to avoid some
Well,
problems.
but just like Chris is saying, if you can get them to move some, it's better than not moving at all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I've seen birds, well, my birds do it, but I've seen house birds, on a Boeing, and they'll flap and flap and they swing around and around and around.
Mhm.
In fact, one of my birds was doing that this morning, and it's just so they can devise their own. Oh, well, the little cockatoo you saw swinging around on that rag that was hanging down. I didn't train that. She did that all on her own. So
I was going to ask you, with the rag, was the rag part of the purpose, or did it just happen to be there and she found it?
I had it in her aviary, and just for something for the birds to swing on. And I saw her doing that one day, and so I put it outside, and then
She
I said,
generalized it.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
she just went over there and did it for fun. But yeah, they'll make up their own games if I believe they're confident in their bodies, in what their bodies can do and what their wings can do. And again, guess what? It starts from when they're chicks
Mhm.
and from their parents. So
I don't know much about the breeding world these days, or what the quantity of breeders are that are promote parent raised versus not. It seems like a lot of the better breeders, I should say, like you and Pam and Phoebe Linden, have all decided that that's not the thing to do anymore. So who's left, right?
I know.
Hey, so that leaves us to, where's Rosemary?
She was here, and she's not here now. So
Darn it. Oh, okay.
yeah,
All right.
I'm not sure. Just so everybody listening knows, Rosemary Lowe is famous. She's one of the most prolific writers of all things parrot from all over the world.
We love her being on today, but
she was on today, and I unmuted her at one point, but now she's gone. So we were hoping that she would join us.
Come back, Rosemary.
Yes, we need to hear more from her. Yes. Yes,
Because she has so much knowledge about all these different species in the wild and in her captivity as well. And
probably more than anybody. Probably more than everybody in the world combined, right?
Yeah.
I mean, super wise.
I wrote an article in a European magazine, avian magazine, about parent raising. So, and she has her own parent raised birds that are her pets.
Right.
Crimson bellied conures, I think, is her.
Yeah. And then it would be fun, and you should go visit her.
She's
and
been
do
asking.
and do some videos of her going out to collect food items,
foraging things
for
the neighborhood.
Food items for the birds. So, and then she forages with that. Oh my God, somebody's got a video of that. Oh, Beautiful stuff.
Well, you live in an area with a lot of foraging things to pick up,
Well,
browse.
but I learned some of that from her, you
Ah.
know, when she came to do her talk. I should have gotten up and gone out with her if I'd only known. Rosemary, come back.
Yeah, I know all of us encourage everyone listening to go out and find safe plants and add those to their parrots enrichment opportunities.
Yeah, we do the curly dock all the time. That was one that she showed us how to do, and
Birds don't
I
Is
like
that a native in Ohio? I don't know what that is.
yeah, well, it's considered a weed, right? So then I pick it, and then I give it to and then I bring it into the practice and I start handing it out to people, and they're like, so like, what's that? You know, just like the bird.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
what is that? But you know, her birds have a different attitude, like Chris is saying. Like, you show something new to a bird that has confidence, they're like, oh, look at that, as opposed to, oh, I don't know what that is.
Right.
And like branches, I brought branches in, and I was surprised that birds were afraid of branches. And I thought, well, hell, they haven't even seen branches before. Of course they should be afraid. And then somebody asked something about pine cones. Yeah, some birds like pine cones, some birds don't.
They can be good foraging if you
Yeah.
can, like digger seeds in between the pine cone thingies. But yeah, where I used to live in Grass Valley, we had digger pines, and they would have big pine cones, and you could get the nuts out of them really easily, and the birds really enjoy doing that. So, but they don't have those here in Oregon.
Yeah. And then things where you can wrap stuff up in paper. But I try to go out and get, you know, different things. Like, I'll even take soybeans, you know, and in case they have to unshell them. And so, and then just some of the herbs I'll put in a cage. And, you know, people don't think about the fresh herb as much, just to put it in their hole for them to play with and chew on and get used to it.
What are your favorites?
Well, I love things like curled parsley, and cilantro. I put those in there. I wind in between the cage bars. It depends on the species, you know. And budgies love fresh dill, like a big thing of fresh dill, and they just love. They can put their heads in there.
Since cilantro is like a chelator, do you find it gives them diarrhea or anything?
No.
We try to grow a lot of butterfly bushes, roses.
Oh yeah, yeah, good.
Grape myrtle. Those are the three we try to grow around here. Yeah.
Yeah. And so and stuff from the garden, you know, in the summertime, giving them all that kind of stuff to play with and eat. This is the time of year for pumpkin, right? Pie pumpkin, to play with that, chew that up.
Skewers, throw it all on a skewer.
Yeah, threw it on. Yeah.
Yeah. Make it challenging to get to. Yeah.
But we got to get these people getting their birth. And Chris, the other thing, like as a veterinarian, sometimes I will do some a little bit of wing clipping, a little bit if I can, and so I try not to clip wings, almost never. There are times when I have to do a little bit of something to kind of cool the jets during the breeding season. Some of these birds do exactly what you were talking about. Like that cockatoo, she started flying at you. Okay, so that's a time where that human needs to step back and do what you did, and let's get some target training. Let's get going on doing things the right way. But the problem is, you are a great human being. And most owners don't want to take the time.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's training the human. It's training the human. So
That's
You
true.
got to keep the bird from going to a new home. So I might trim a couple feathers, depending on the species, will determine how much I do of what.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah.
But it's not because I'm a great human being. It's just, it's a lot of work to do.
It's a lot of work. You're
People don't
right.
even train their dogs. I mean, come on. So, yeah, I can't blame the person. That's just the way we are. I'm as lazy as the next person, so.
Hey, so Anne, what's your other bush that you like? Somebody asked.
Roses of Sharon. I just wrote it down.
Roses of Sharon. Okay, okay.
In fact,
Yeah.
it makes these beautiful pink flowers. Other flowers are like nasturtium. That's a great one to grow also, but roses of Sharon make beautiful flowers. But we have Quakers that live outdoors, and the roses of Sharon make a perfect stem for cutting into little, to the length that they like to pick up and weave in their
Oh, wow.
apartments. So
Yeah.
Roses of Sharon is a perfect size for that. That's the Quaker favorite. Yeah. But butterfly
Wow, that's
bushes
great.
too. Yeah. Somebody wants to know if there are any specific favorites, either herbs or plants for barrides. She must have a barride.
Oh, congratulations. Don't ask me, ask Dr.
Oh,
Orr.
oh, you don't
No,
have anything particular on your property that you're like, oh, that's their favorite
let's
kind of
see.
tree or bark or whatever.
Oh, Dr. Oros, you might not know this, but I think one of the favorites of the barrides, and barrides, by the way, for people who don't know, spend a lot of time on the ground foraging.
Yeah.
And when I'm cleaning the horse stalls, that's what they like to forage. Yes, indeed. They like to forage the horse manure. So
We see that in the wild too.
that's
What
right.
with
Yeah,
cattle?
we've seen
Cattle dung.
mandates, the steam coming out of their beaks because they got right in the horse poop or cow poop,
Mostly cow poop though, Anne.
mostly cow poop. Yeah.
Yeah.
I asked my veterinarian, avian vet, and I said, should I be worried about this? He says, nah, you don't need to worry about that. So he, in fact, Star, just the other day, I should have put it on the presentation. She was down playing with a pile, and she separated a little horse apple and was rolling on her back with it, and playing with it with her feet. And I'm going, oh, cheap toys. That's me. I'm all about being frugal. So other than that, the barrides, I have ash trees. They like the seed pods there. They mostly like grass seeds. They'll do a lot of grass seeds, and I'll harvest my pasture and dry it and then take it into them, or they'll come out and eat it themselves. So yeah, they do a lot of that, mostly grass.
I noticed in one of your training videos, there was millet, but it looked like it hadn't dried. It was fresh
Right.
millet.
Right, fresh
That's
millet.
so interesting. I don't think I've ever seen millet growing.
Yeah,
Only in the bags at the store, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
I grow a lot of millet for them, and they like to, I also grow, I put this in the aviaries. I'll use those metal horse trough container thingies, and I'll grow wheat, like winter wheat right now, and millet and corn. I can never remember the name of it, but anyway, other types of sprouting seeds that grow to maturity. They like chard that has bolted, and they eat all the seeds off of that. They love that. In fact,
Kale makes really nice flowers too. The Quakers love the kale flowers. Yeah.
Yep. So any, like Susan said, or you said, whoever said it, anything out of the garden is really nice. So yeah.
Somebody wants to know if we have to worry about avian influenza from harvesting things in the wild. I don't think I've ever heard that.
No.
I mean, I don't think viruses sit around and languish on anything. They die very quickly, don't they? Yeah. Even
I think
bacteria
there's
doesn't
too
seem
much
to-
worrying, and the birds need to benefit from
I
using
mean, it
stuff
would be
from the wild.
bacteria or fungus would be more likely to grow on something outside than a virus, right?
Yeah, and just let's not even go there.
Yeah.
Pick it up and give it to your bird.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Bamboo's another good
worried in
one
the-
too.
I was worried in the beginning of letting my flyers out, but now I don't need to be so concerned. I mean, I don't have any waterfowl around here
Yeah,
either.
see, it's a waterfowl thing. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
that's the problem when you get waterfowl in the same area. Like there was a situation in the state of Michigan where someone had a waterfowl rehab facility and had parrots.
Oh, oh dear.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was the oh dear, because then everybody, because you know, when the problem is the USDA has a depopulate attitude. They don't look at
Yeah.
an animal as an individual. It's an interesting way of thinking. After 30 some years, I would think that they could think a different way, but apparently they can't yet. And so, so then they had to depopulate everything. That would include the parrots.
Yeah.
And so,
Same with
because
Newcastle.
yeah, because of the whole thing with, you know, the poultry industry is so important for the United States, and it is from a world perspective. I understand that, but we got to be careful. But it's a, you know, if you had, let's say you want to take your bird out flying, but you live in an area where there's a lot of waterfowl like I do, that's probably not a smart thing with the influenza going through.
Mhm.
Or when the birds are migrating through, like in the middle of the summer, not such a big deal. Now with the migrations, like I was just over here, I look across the road from me, there was a huge flock of whistling swans that sat down with some sandhill cranes. Well, don't put your birds out to fly them then, for God's sakes, because your parrots, I should say, because you know there could be an influenza issue. So you got to be thoughtful.
Back when we had quarantine stations, wasn't it the pox that came from the migratory birds that got into like some of the Amazons and things? It was pox. In fact, we still have seen some Amazons with eye issues. They used to lose their eyes from the pox. Wasn't that a virus that came from?
Yeah, pox viruses, but and part of that was is the fact that the birds had such poor quality care with their diets and their food that the skin was not intact like it should be. So when you have adequate levels of vitamin A and beta carotenes in the diet, they probably wouldn't have had the problem. But then the birds that you see these recurring infections, those probably were young birds that got at a quarantine station and their immune system was at a point they could never overcome it.
Mm.
And so though I had a couple of birds in my facility when I was at the University of Tennessee, they would get these recurring pox infections, and it was, you'll notice that it relates to the yearly cycle. And like Chris was talking about how, you know, this is the time of year the cockatoos are crazy. So whenever their breeding season is, that's when the immune system tends to go down. Whatever species, like Amazons, you know, some of them start breeding in March, some of them a little bit later. But when their immune system goes down when their hormones go up.
Interesting. I must say, I don't know if it's just because parrots are healthier or what, but yeah, my birds, except for the one who died from cancer,
Well,
are extremely healthy, and I don't know why. I
they
mean,
fly.
they fly around, they're outdoors, I guess.
They fly.
Yeah.
And they fly a lot.
Yeah, they do. So
So I was thinking about that, Chris, when you were talking. I thought, man, with the amount of flying that your birds are doing, it would be great. I mean, you don't necessarily want to subject them to this, but wouldn't it be great if we could just kind of sprinkle fairy dust over them and have Scott do some CTs?
that'd be great. That
To
would be
compare
know,
them.
And
Yeah.
compare them age for age with other birds that he has. I mean, age for age with that type of that species of cockatoo.
I'm up for that. It would be interesting because I have non-flyers, you know, I have that big citron, sulfur crest.
Yeah.
You could look
Oh
at.
yeah. Well, that one's gonna, you know, You take an X-ray and see.
Yeah. And then a flyer or two, I'd be totally up for.
I mean, I just think it'd be interesting thing, but you know, I can't imagine that the fly, I mean, I would bet that, let's say you had a bird, I'm sure you have, because it's been a long time since we got to see each other out there, but I would bet you've got a bird that is at least with you for 20 years that's been flying.
Yeah, the oldest one I have that's been with me is, in fact, 30, I think he's 31 years old.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to take that bird and compare him even with an X-ray. And I will bet you he doesn't have signs of heart disease. I would bet you that he doesn't have signs of heart disease.
Well, where did I go?
It's my fault.
Oh, that's okay.
No, come back.
Uh-oh.
That's all right. You can turn your presentation off, actually. There you go.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Goodness gracious. Where was I? Why is it starting? Start my video. Start.
Hits. There you go.
Talking about the 30-year-old? No. Now I lost.
Comparing birds that have
Comparing birds. So
yeah.
so the thing is, I would bet that in general, your 30-year-old cockatoo
Right.
doesn't have signs of arthritis, heart disease, and
Right.
I bet the liver's not starting to shrink. I'm guessing, but I would bet that it probably doesn't.
I will say this, the only way I can tell is that when they are being chased by a raptor, which happens this time of the year, because we're almost at the end of the migration of raptors coming through, like Coopers and stuff. But if they fly and fly and fly and fly and then they land, they're not panting. You know, there's no, they're just breathing, which tells me they're in pretty darn good shape, unless it's hot. You know, then it'll affect them. But that's the only thing I can tell. And their acrobatics, the way that they can swoosh and change direction, tells me they're in good shape too.
So Michelle asks, is diet just an important factor as flying? No.
Really? Wow.
No, flying is way more important.
Wow.
So when we look at diet, sure. Here's the basic problem. The basic thing is birds are going to select for fat and protein because they're designed to fly. Their brain says we are flying. When you set them on a perch, their brain hasn't evolved to say, oh, I'm going to have salad today. I mean, you know, so the bird still wants to select for fat and protein. So you can have a nice diet for them. And we've seen this, that our diets have improved over time. So we can make them live longer, right? So now and then by the age of 20, they're falling apart. And the reason they're falling apart is because there's not much flapping going on. And it doesn't matter if the bird is a raptor. So it doesn't matter if you fed it mice and rats, or if you fed it parrot food. If they're sitting there for 20 years, they're going to have signs of heart disease, and they're going to have lots of holes in their bone. I mean, you've seen the CTs, Anne, of, you know, that Scott has shown with all these the holy looking skeleton, which Chris's birds are not going to show. I just don't think they would.
When we were in Brazil, Dr. O decided that she wanted to feel what a wild Amazon's keel felt like. So we found a pair of Amazons who were foraging on some flowers. And if I didn't have it on video, you probably wouldn't believe me, but she caught that bird twice and felt the muscle mass, and it was hard,
okay.
right?
Right.
It was totally different.
Totally different. So the first interesting thing is, here we were in Brazil, right? And these guys had an idea about disease. So they had you wash your hands before you go into this restaurant. but they only have one towel. So everybody has to wipe their hands off on
Yeah.
the same towel, right? So,
Yeah.
so Anne dared me to pick this bird up. So I walked over and got the single towel, right? And so I was playing with him, and went, wham!
Because she's a great catcher. She knows how to get him around the neck in no time.
Yeah. So then
Yeah.
I felt them, and they're just like, rah, rah.
Yeah.
And I was
They were
like,
so
and-
happy eating their
But
flowers.
the thing is,
Yeah.
I was so excited, And then she said, "Oh, I didn't get to film it. You got to do it again." And I thought, "Oh, this isn't going to happen the second time. This bird's not stupid enough to let me do this twice."
Yeah.
But he was so. But see, I gave him the big treat. See, you always tell me about what is that called? What's that called? The term for that when you have the jackpot.
A
right?
jackpot.
So
yeah.
I gave him this big piece of cornbread from inside the restaurant. So yeah, he had the jackpot, so he was willing to let me do it a second time.
Yeah, but it felt completely different than all those overweight Amazons you see at your practice, right?
And listen, the thing that people need to feel, you're going to feel the pectoral muscle mass, right? But then you need to widen your little hands out and go over to the sides, to the hips. And there's a lot of fat on there. There'll be a lot of fat. And there'll be fat in the abdomen. Now there should be a tiny amount of fat in the abdomen, but the average Joe bird in the United States is going to be fat in the abdomen too. Lots of it.
Even budgies, right? Who don't fly, especially.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what it is. But I love your budgies. It's like I want a herd of them flying around in my kitchen.
We were just asked to help 120 of them in the Baltimore shelter. So if you'd like to have 120 parakeets,
Oh.
they need a home. Anybody out there who could help, go to Baltimore. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
sad. What
Yeah.
kind of situation is it? Is it a breeding situation?
I think so.
Yeah, too bad. Too bad. Well, we've lost Rosemary, right? She never came back.
Yeah, I don't think she's come back. I'm sorry to say, but we're going to try to plan something with her specifically.
Yes.
Now
We're
that
gonna have
we,
another thing to.
now that
so
we know she
Chris has to
can't
teach
get on
us all
Zoom.
again how to do
Yeah.
in the home flying.
Yeah. Well, I can come up with some different ideas. I might have to go out and recruit some home birds to do that.
That'd be nice.
It would be good for me since I don't have that much experience with other birds, I must say. So, oops, now I lost.
Well, we're hungry for more ideas for exercise. I mean, it's just such a challenge with birds in our homes, short of safely flying. And even then, it's not a whole lot of flight compared to what your birds do or birds should do. So
Yeah,
any
but
kind of
anything to
exercise
start,
idea.
it's important. It's
But
important.
I think Susan is right in that, I don't want people to compare their birds up to mine. I mean, that's, first of all, I don't approve of everybody going out and free flying the birds. And secondly, I don't think it's necessary to have a healthy bird in the home. So, as I said, I use mine as an example of what I do.
What got you started doing this? Did it happen by accident or did you do it on purpose?
Pretty much.
When was your first free flight?
Yeah, my first free flight was with Popcorn. He was a sulfur-crested cockatoo at Triton, and he was imported back in the day. And he was a poached bird apparently because he was very friendly, and so he was, I'm sure, parent raised because he didn't bond to me. I mean, he liked me, but he didn't bond to me, but he was a friendly bird. And so I had him in California, and I don't know, I would just let him kind of let out. I'd just let him out and hang out on the aviary and such. And one day, and I would take him up to the deck and I would have him do some recalls to me, some jumps and stuff. And then one day he was out just hanging around and I couldn't find him. And apparently he had flown off. And I'm going, this is interesting. Now what? I thought I'd lost him, but I didn't. And I found him. And I thought, I think we should train you. And so we did. I did. And that's how it all started. And then I had a little yellow-collared macaw who was taken by a raptor that I had adored that bird. In fact, she was the first bird that had been taken by a raptor, free-flying bird that had been taken by a raptor. And I thought it broke my heart, and I thought I would never fly a bird again outside. No, nope, not going to do it. It hurts too much. And after a week of the birds not flying, every time they saw me, this big hullabaloo of vocalizations, aren't you going to let us out? Well, that's the way I interpreted it. I don't know what they were saying, but they were very happy to come out. It didn't bother them. You know, that's living. That's life as a bird. So it's very complex, free flying.
It is. It's
emotion.
definitely not for everybody.
That's not for everybody.
We're operational in a small part of Florida, but even in that one small part, people are forever parking their birds in the trees outside, and because the weather is different. And it's just I'm always amazed at how many people do it without considering the risks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. I'm sure a lot get lost. In fact, they have a whole flock of blue and golds in the Miami area that either escaped or were released.
Yeah. Well, so they're going to all replace the Carolina parrot, right?
Yeah. And of course the Amazons in Texas and the conures in California and yeah. We got a whole new brew.
Mostly urban parrots, I guess.
Urban parrots. Well, it's the key to conservation these days too, is finding a way for people and birds to live together harmoniously. We've seen that in up close and personal in Brazil as a perfect example for the hyacinths and the blue and golds in Brazil. Yeah. Well, thank you, Chris. Today has been so much fun.
My goodness, it's
been a great day for conversation. I'm sorry Rosemary couldn't still be here. I'm sure she'd have lots of thoughts on all our topics. So maybe we'll just have to do a Q&A with smart parrot people someday and just have a
and try to get Rosemary on there.
Yeah, maybe Scott Eccles, a couple more of you, and just have a conversation, let people ask questions. I think people really appreciate having an opportunity to connect with wise people like you all. So thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for everybody for joining us today. I wish I could see all your faces, but I can't.
Yeah.
Maybe there's only 2 out there. I don't know.
No, we've lost a few, but we had 50 plus for most of the time. Yeah. And I'm sure a lot more people will watch the recording. So
I hope so. It's an important message to get out. And I would love to find people who don't agree with us and debate it.
Have that conversation.
Civil way, have a conversation, because I think it would help us both, both sides.
Well, in case any of those people should decide to watch this recording, do you want them to connect with you by email? Do you want to share that? What is your email for the public?
Oh, it's Chris, CHRIS .Shank, SHANK @iCloud.com.
Perfect. Okay. Maybe you'll meet some folks and have a hearty discussion on this somewhat controversial at times topic. Yes. I think you're leading the way in a very positive, forward thinking, need to happen.
Well, I'm not the only one. Rosemary's out there too. So that's
and Susan.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Susan, next time we'll talk horse.
Are you going to keep us connected even though
we'll come back. So I'm going to end the meeting now for everybody, and thanks again for being here. And don't forget, next month Debbie Foster's joining us again. She has a new version of her behavior class, and even if you've been to some of her prior behavior classes, we can never talk behavior enough, right? It's the key to success many times. So that's January 14th. Meanwhile, everybody have wonderful holidays. Do something special for your parrot today in honor of Chris and Dr. O. And thanks for being here. We appreciate you and all you do for parrots in general. Bye, everybody.